Welcome back, everyone. This is Dr. Seymour with the Optimal Response Initiative, ORI. Stay alert, stay alive, and thrive. The training continues. So this week, we are talking about creativity. In this episode, I will empower you with the knowledge that you have the ability to creatively problem solve and thrive. I will discuss how convergent and divergent thinking are key to being able to generate creative ideas and provide 3 types of meditation tools that I learned from Dr. Andrew Huberman from his Huberman Lab Podcast. Open monitoring meditation, focused attention meditation, and non-sleep deep rest, NSDR. And just so you know, there have been some tools I have provided in the past, learning about emotions, emote, taking one emotion and looking up different synonyms of that emotion. That is actually similar to open monitoring in that you are starting from one point and diverging outward, brainstorming what other synonyms can I use to describe this particular emotion, emote, from low intensities to higher intensities. Focused attention meditation is more of convergent thinking, and this is where we are using a sit report and converging down upon a decision. What is the new thing I can do? What is the new thing I can say? And what is the more optimal response I can have other than the knee-jerk reaction? So we are focused on creatively problem solving and then converging in upon and deciding what is the most optimal decision for me in this particular sit situation from a sit report. So surprisingly enough, you've already been using some of these creative problem solving skills. Today, we're just going to talk about more of the specifics as far as convergent thinking and divergent thinking. And I will point you to the open monitoring meditation and the focused attention meditation and the non-sleep deep rest that Dr. Andrew Huberman teaches us about in his podcast. I will also discuss the neuromodulator dopamine and how dopamine and mood contribute to the creative process. And I will describe some behavioral approaches for increasing dopamine to engage in creative thought and implementation of what you're learning. I will also discuss how movement physically and storytelling movement, which is the movement that occurs throughout the narration of a story, especially if we are adding new chapters or editing specific chapters or sections of our own story. As we learn to tell our story in more optimal ways, from a place of healing and strength and resilience, which is a lifelong journey of healing. But as we do this, it increases neuroplasticity. And doing this, moving physically and moving throughout the narration of our own story, moving towards optimal and healthy ways, is creative problem solving. And both of these things, physical movement and the movement within a narration, this improves our ability to creatively problem solve. And in fact, the theta brain activity that is occurring when we are creating is also happening when we are in that deepest stage of sleep, the REM sleep that I talked about in a previous podcast. So if you remember, theta brain waves are what is occurring in the deepest REM sleep, the stage of sleep, that we need to be able to get to for the information that we're carrying around on our thumb drive, short-term memory all day long. If we've been carrying this information around all day, well, this information needs to make it to the long-term hard drive memory, the hard drive, especially if we have learned new information that day. And think about the Optimal Response Initiative and the journey that we are all on together. If we have a new narrative to our story, one that is more about thriving versus only surviving, this new narration, this new information that we have picked up, that we have integrated throughout the day, definitely needs to make it to the long-term memory, REM sleep, so that it can be downloaded and rewritten in more thriving ways to the hard drive, so that we don't wake up every day and feel like we are stuck in Groundhog's Day, Bill Murray stepping in that same puddle. Creativity and problem solving are intricately connected, and all of these are connected to all of the other podcasts we've talked about, really, that we've been on this journey together. Sleep. We need to be able to have efficient and effective sleep. We need to have enough sleep, and especially we need to have all stages of sleep and have 5 cycles of those sleep cycles throughout the night. Creativity occurs when we are creating. We're going to talk about what is creativity. Creativity is also occurring while we're sleeping, and definitely in that deepest stage of sleep, REM sleep. That is when the known information that we've been carrying around and new information that we have picked up throughout the day is integrated in new creative ways in that deepest stage of sleep, where we can have a new narration, a new story based on all the work we're doing, based on optimal mindsets. And we want that to stay in and on the long-term memory, the hard drive. So theta brain activity is occurring during creativity, and theta brain activity is occurring during REM sleep, the deepest stage of sleep. I think it's amazing the way all of this is connected. So can you see how valuable creativity can be? Creativity represents flexibility, an ability to move beyond the confines of what we know, facilitating an opportunity to capital letter know, capital letter K, capital letter N, capital letter O, capital letter W, to capital letter know something that we've always known, such as survival skills, emotions, colors, movement, breathing, sleeping. But now we are able to capital letter know them, experience the combination of them in new and useful ways for thriving. In the same way that one trains in the military, creativity is a skill that can be cultivated, and neural pathways of and for creativity can be honed in on, toned, and strengthened. As the Rangers say, adapt and overcome. As my husband says, there's always a way. And as Hebrews 4:13 reads, nothing in all creation is hidden. To all the thriving warriors out there, I want to encourage you to be courageous and curious about using your creative problem-solving skills in the midst of opportunity, meeting moments. To all of the thriving warriors out there, I'm going to repeat this again. I want to encourage you to be courageous and curious about using your creative problem-solving skills in the midst of opportunity, meeting moments in your day-to-day life to thrive. Let's talk about creativity, problem solving, and thriving. What is the definition of creativity? The ability to take existing elements, knowledge one has, such as one's thoughts, ideas, and mood states, for example, to take existing information or rule sets and reorder them into novel combinations that are useful. Useful can be practical, like the creation of a calculator, or useful can be entertaining, like a painting, a movie, or music. We like the music we like because we hear it in a way that is new and different, that resonates with us. So when we see, hear, feel, or experience known elements in novel ways, new ways that are truly creative, neural circuits within us change. They release chemicals, a chemical specifically called dopamine, that makes us feel surprised, delighted, and excited in anticipation that we might see it, hear it, feel it, experience it again, such as numbers, music, visual elements, physical movements, new combinations that reveal to us something fundamental about the way our brain, us, and the world works. And we may or may not realize what it is that we feel that is new in the moment, but we know that it is new and it feels true. So, what underlies this process? Think of creativity as a verb, as movement, and there are steps that are required in order to be creative. Creativity requires movement. Creativity, problem solving, and thriving in our day-to-day life requires movement. So, what are the steps? What are the steps that we need to come up with, test, and implement a creative idea or experience the creative process? There are three major networks in the brain responsible for creativity. In fact, the Optimal Response Initiative is just that for me. ORI is full of ideas and concepts that I have come up with over 25 years, where I have taken known information, things I've learned, things I've experienced, things that are known to others, such as emotions. Emotions is not a new word or concept. However, I came up with a way to understand the value, the purpose, and the process of emotions in a way by taking elements such as emotions, recognizing the root of emotion, emote, which is and means energy and motion, moving up within us. I connected this to military training of gathering intel and moving up and out, moving out into new territory for the mission and a survival mindset. I took all this, combined all this throughout the course of 25 years or so, gaining and having the insight of new understanding for myself that just like we need new intel in the military to survive, we need new intel in day-to-day life situations for thriving. We need the intel to thrive. So in this way, I realized that every emotion has optimal intel for us. These emotions are not good or bad. They're not positive or negative. Sure, we may enjoy some emotions more than others, but all emotes are moving up and out within us to give us intel about what we need in any given situation for thriving. And I, of course, did not invent colors either. I didn't invent colors. However, there are many emotions and there are many colors. There are many emotion color wheels in existence. You can Google color wheel and at least 100 will pop up online. I've always used colors to help myself learn and remember things. I also love colors, with blue being my favorite color. Combining all of these known things, taking my love for color and known existing elements like the color wheel, I also incorporated colors into my own understanding of emotes, creating my own color chart, which I shared in a previous podcast, which is way more expansive than that, but I shared a snippet of it. I created my own color chart and system of emotes, branching off of the concept that every color has different hues and combinations of colors to create new colors, some very similar to the primary colors of blue, for example, some very opposite or vastly different than any initial primary color. And just as Home Depot or Lowe's has walls of color samples to choose from when we go pick out a paint, so too do emotions have a million different combinations, hues, or intensities of themselves and one another. And to some degree, either very close or far removed. All emotions are connected, just as all colors are connected. Further, I have an entire section in my ORI workbook called Movement is Key, which is chapter 13. Movement is key. Movement is key to thriving. Yes, there is movement within the body, within our cells, and energy. We also engage in movement as we breathe, as we go about our day-to-day lives. Again, emotion means energy and motion. Since energy moving within us emotes, I consider to be the intel to inform us about what we may need in any given situation to thrive. That energy and motion within us is working. It's working its way up and out to inform us about what we need. And since this energy is moving up and out within us to give us intel about what we need, We can brainstorm, we can creatively problem solve about how to meet this newly identified need in a healthy way, moving us towards optimal on the ORI continuum response line. Because remember, we always have a choice in any given situation about one, we can take the time to pause and consider where we are on the ORI continuum response line. Two, we can consider what emote we are feeling. Three, we consider what the emote is trying to tell us that we need. Four, we can brainstorm about how to meet that need in a healthy way, moving us towards optimal. And five, on the optimal, on the ORI continuum response line, we can decide what direction we want to move. All of this, everything within ORI, is about moving towards optimal versus worst. And anything to the right of worst is better, lowercase better, or capital better, as we move towards optimal. All of this involves energy and motion within us, for us, and through us, resulting in us being able to take optimal action to meet our needs in optimal ways for thriving. In fact, to personalize this even more, when I was 7, as you know, I've shared before, I woke up stuck in my body in a coma. I was well aware that I was awake, but stuck in my body. I told myself to move my left arm as a test, but my left arm didn't move, and I knew I was stuck in my body. I had many emotes, the strongest one being peace, and peace caused me to feel wonderful. I literally didn't need anything else, except I had a problem that I needed to creatively problem solve. I had another strong emote going on at the same time, desire, motivation. I wanted to reconnect my brain and my body so that even though my thoughts were moving, and I had vast and intense emotes moving within me, my body could not match the energy of my thoughts racing within me. My body was still not able to move. My mind was at peace in one sense, but in equal measure, value, purpose, and a desire to process and move the energy within. I also wanted to be able to physically move and wake up and get back to my best friend, my older brother, Sean. I did not want to leave him alone out there beyond the confines of my physical body. I wanted the energy within to fuel and match the physical energy exerted and connected. I wanted it all to be connected, my brain and body to be literally on the same page, mentally and physically. Can you see or get a sense of how much the mind and body are connected? And there is a need to remain in sync, the brain, the body, the mind and body to be synchronized, connected to one another in order to not only stay alert and stay alive, but also to thrive. Wow. I'm getting more and more excited sharing how, for me, since I was 7 years old, I've been trying to make sense of the value, the purpose, the process of emotes, energy and motion moving up within us, and to come up with practical tools, yes, for myself, because I was stuck in my body in a coma, and I did have to relearn how to speak, relearn how to express, relearn how to physically move my mouth and move my body at 7. And I have been on a journey to continually learn more and more about the mind-body connection and about how to thrive in day-to-day life, not just survive. So for me, it started in that coma at 7 years old. But fast forward, we're taking these things that I've experienced, the common information I've gathered, the ways that I have connected these new combinations of many different known elements to create the Optimal Response Initiative with emotes, gathering intel, brainstorming about what the intel may be telling me or you, what we need to thrive in situations. I've created tools to be empowered so I could thrive rather than be terrified and only stuck in my body at 7 or stuck in my body in survival mode in my adult life throughout my day-to-day life. And I'm very passionate about sharing them with you so that you can too. I hope that my story or the stories that I share, my narrative, inspires you to know that you too have the knowledge, the information, and the experiences that you can combine in new ways that have utility, use, practical application, so that you too can thrive. In fact, I've already shared some tools that are examples of creative problem solving for thriving in other podcasts. I've shared the emote speed need tool. This is an example of divergent thinking. And I've shared the SIT report, which is an example of convergent thinking, converging upon the situation, identifying all the parts, and coming up with the most optimal response for you, a new way to respond, to create a new narration for you in each given situation. And both types of these thinking, convergent thinking and divergent thinking, are needed in the creative process. So every time you use these tools, you are honing your creative problem solving skills for thriving. When we experience something that is truly creative, it reveals something new to us about the natural world, how our brain works. It reveals something new to us about us. There are 3 major networks within the brain, each of which are responsible for the 3 steps that we need to engage in to arrive at something truly creative. The first network is the executive network. This network sits right behind the forebrain. It's the prefrontal cortex. So this executive network is mainly responsible for suppressing action, eliminating choices among the infinite amount that exists, such as what colors to use, what words, what sentences to choose for a writing piece, what lines to draw, what notes to play for music, what movements to make in a dance routine or a sports endeavor, what numbers to include when working on math. The second network is the default mode network for imagination. Now, the default mode network, this starts being engaged when you close your eyes and pay attention to what is going on in terms of your thinking as opposed to the sensory outside world. The default mode network is responsible for imagination, so spontaneous imagination. So when you close your eyes and try not to pay attention to the sounds around you. But even if you do, you might pay attention to, you might recognize that there's sounds going on around you, but you try to hone in more on the thoughts or feelings that are emerging, that are coming up within. Okay. When you close your eyes, you engage the default mode network, drawing your attention more to the inside awareness of self. Also, when you're doing this, you may be thinking about your thinking. So realizing what thoughts are coming up, whether they are full sentences, half sentences, phrases, words, whatever thoughts or ideas are coming up. They may be complete, incomplete. They might be distant, in the past, present, or future. They can be about anything. It all depends on what time of day it is, how rested you are, how stressed you are, how happy you are. Whatever comes up, comes up. So the default mode network will take you through a journey of imagination based on elements within your head. Therefore, the default mode network, when your eyes are closed, you're engaged in the default mode network. This is relying on memories, things of previous known knowledge, things that you already know, experiences you've already had. As soon as you close your eyes, you are no longer bringing in novel, new experiences, new ideas. You are relying on your database of memories of previous experiences. Now, you are no longer bringing in novel, new information. You are relying on the library of existing experiences, memories, okay? And all of that is used to imagine, to spontaneously imagine. But the brain is pulling from known existing knowledge, experiences. Okay. That was a lot of half phrases about the default mode network, but I believe you're tracking. Okay. The third network is a salience network. This is a network of regions that involves the insula. Now, the insula, the part of the brain, the insula has a complete map of your body's surface as well as a map about what's going on in the outside world, and how these two combine, the map of the body surface, the map of what is going on in the outside world, the combination of these two things, the insula is managing. It's paying attention to the combined knowledge of what is going on within, what is going on outside on the outside world, and what is going on within the body. The salience network encompasses the insula as well as the ACC. I've talked about that before in another podcast, the anterior cingulate cortex and the amygdala. So these are just three major areas of the brain that are part of the salience network. All of these together are helping us know how we feel in relation to things going on around us, and how we feel in relation to things going on within us. Okay, so we have the executive network, which is the executive network. I like to call it kind of the brakes of the system. It is the ability to suppress choices. So to not say everything we think, to not do everything we want to do impulsively, the ability to stop, pause, and use our brakes, and to suppress choices and be able to hone in then on the choices left after we have suppressed other choices, and now we are focused on other specific choices. So the executive network, the ability to organize, plan, and suppress choices. The salience network that encompasses the ACC, the anterior cingulate cortex, the amygdala, and the insula. And the default mode network, which helps us when we close our eyes, we are focused within, and we can engage in the process of spontaneous imagination. The default mode network, it's kind of like when we close our eyes, default mode network enables us to take a walk, to take an imaginary, well, it is an imaginal walk within the mind, and experience spontaneous imagination based on things we know, knowledge we have, things we've experienced. Not taking in new information at this point for new ideas, but using the knowledge we have to imagine and create based on what we already know. Knowledge we already have. So, for example, I don't know things about music. I'm not a musician. So I don't have a good knowledge base, a foundation of music, of instruments, of how to play, of tunes, anything like that. So I would not be able to sit down and spontaneously just create some musical song on a guitar, for example, because I do not have a foundation of knowledge of playing guitars, playing music, writing music. Now, someone who has a good foundation, and I have a good friend who has a good foundation and knowledge of music, of several instruments, and of writing music, that individual could close their eyes and imagine and think about, based on all the things they've experienced, based on all the things they know regarding music. They could spontaneously create based on pulling from the database of what they know regarding music. That wouldn't be something I could do. I don't have a good, solid plethora, large amount of knowledge about all that. Okay. So when we close our eyes and we're engaged in the default mode network, what our brain is going to do is pull from things we know, things we have experienced, and from that build and be able to creatively imagine new things based on known things that we know. Okay, I'll move on from there because I like to repeat myself. But we have the executive network, we have the default mode network, and we have the salience network. All of these networks are involved in the creative process. Creativity is a rearranging of existing elements into novel, new combinations that reveal something fundamental about how we or the world works. And these things tend to be things that are useful. Useful can be entertaining or thrilling, like a movie or music or a painting. Useful can also be like the creation of a calculator or the creation of a smartphone. That is something that those are things that at one point did not exist. And through the creative process, they exist now, which we all know that, but at one point they didn't exist. Okay, so the creative process and usefulness can be something practical, like a calculator or a smartphone, or it can be something entertaining or thrilling, like art, like a painting, like a movie, like music. Things that are truly creative change the way that we are able to access the world. They serve as a portal to ourselves and the world. They involve the default mode network, the salience network, and the executive network. Two elements that go into creativity are divergent thinking. Divergent thinking takes a known object or event in the world or sport or concept, such as running, a musical note, a particular color on a piece of paper, and asks, how many different things could be or be used for, or how many different ways could we think about this one thing? So we take one stimulus, one image, one sound, one concept, and try to radiate out from that as many divergent situations, properties, characteristics, events, or things from that one specific element. So if we take a pen, we can take a pen and say, how many uses could this pen have? And it needs to be new, novel, and useful. So to simply say that we could take a pen, a red pen, a blue pen, and we could write in different colors, I mean, that's not super creative or useful because that's already known, and we're not doing anything really new or different that has utility. But if we took a pen and we said, how many ways could we diverge from this pen and think about interesting new ways to use the pen? So we could use the pen to prop up a door. We could use the spring in the pen to do something to generate electricity, like on MacGyver. We could use the pen to, I've had service members and veterans quickly say, to create an airway in an emergency situation. True. Okay, so these are new, novel, useful ways to use a pen. That would be divergent thinking. If you think about the ORI tools that you have used in the past that I have shared from ORI, thinking of one emotion, one emote, and looking it up in a synonym finder and considering other words, other variations in intensity of that emote would be an example of divergent thinking. Taking one word and diverging outward and finding other synonyms that could represent from lower intensity to higher intensity the hue or the area of a mote as the one emotion we've chosen, for example, like angry and all the synonyms of anger, or joy and all the synonyms of joy. That would be a divergent creative problem solving process. Okay. And any answer that you come up with goes. Okay. But we want to find answers that are unique to you, that are useful, practical, helpful, and help you see that emotion in a new, useful way. That is what is considered to be creative. This process involves mental flexibility. And it also involves a wandering through of ideas that you already had, an exploration of ideas that you already had in your library, in your memory banks about pens, for example. And you need to have some basic building blocks that already exist within us. And so within the Optimal Response Initiative, I am really trying to build upon your knowledge base, expand your knowledge base and your understanding of yourself, and train you to thrive, giving you tools, concepts, ideas, maybe that you've never thought of, thinking of emotions in new ways, thinking of colors in new ways, thinking of a sit report. I know that sit report is something that we use in the military, and there's different components within it. In the Optimal Response Initiative, we are looking at a situation and branching out and breaking down all the components of a situation. What are the facts? What is the physical sensations I notice in my body in that situation? What are the thoughts that I'm having? What are the emotes that I'm experiencing? What emotions are under anger and anxiety? If I listed anger or anxiety as one of my or two of my potential emotes, what are those emotions telling me that I need? And there's that other tool, the emote speed need tool, where we're taking an emotion and we are finding all the synonyms, putting them in order from least to greatest, considering colors with the emote chart that I created, and I'll share with you in the future. But in the meantime, you can always use an emotions wheel to branch out from the hues of that primary emotion, the synonyms of that primary emotion. All of these are tools for you, knowledge for you to add to your knowledge base, so that when you are trying to creatively problem solve in your day-to-day life, you now have a built upon knowledge base from the Optimal Response Initiative, whether you've taken the course, whether you have the book, whether you are listening to the podcast. So you can creatively problem solve using all these new tools and different types of thinking. And by the way, think about in the military, you have used divergent thinking and convergent thinking, and you have been very creative in your problem solving abilities as you have adapted and overcome, as you have used the resources that you have to do what you need to do in this moment. My husband told me that, one of the things about the Ranger training that he was in